clinking of cutlery was the only sound holding the dinner together. Marcus sat stiffly at the end of the table, full plate in front of him and a tighter knot in his chest. Across from him sat Evan, 13, growing taller, voice beginning to deepen. Beside him, Leela, Marcus's ex-wife, laughed softly at something her new husband Adam had just said. The room was painted beige, the kind of color meant to blend everything in. Marcus smiled politely, nodding when appropriate, chewing slowly. He wasn't hungry. Then Evan spoke loudly with a cocky grin meant to sting. At least Mom's new husband isn't a loser like you. The room didn't fall silent. It just froze. A beat passed. Leela's fork paused midair. Adam chuckled under his breath awkwardly. Marcus looked at his son. Evan didn't flinch. He stabbed at a piece of broccoli like nothing had happened. Marcus said nothing. Not because he didn't feel the burn, because he'd learned over time that some fires weren't worth pouring fuel on. His hand gripped the edge of the table for a second too long, then slowly relaxed. After dinner, as they stood by the door, Layla leaned in, voice low. You could have said something. He met her eyes cool, unreadable. And what would you have liked me to say? She didn't answer, just offered a shrug. Outside, the wind had picked up. Marcus walked alone to his car, the porch light casting long shadows on the lawn. He sat in the driver's seat, doors closed, engine off. His heart thudded hard in the quiet. There had been so many times like this, small, sharp humiliations that piled quietly like dust. But this one had a name, a voice, his son's voice. He didn't cry, he didn't scream. He just sat there silent. Asterisk, asterisk, the door clicked shut behind him. And Marcus stood in the dark for a long moment before flipping on light. His apartment was small, one bedroom, clean, quiet, but it held echoes. The kind of silence that settled in your bones. He dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door and sat down heavily on the couch. The same spot he always returned to, after court dates, birthdays he wasn't invited to, and dinners like the one tonight. The walls were lined with framed pictures of Anne as a toddler, riding on his shoulders at the beach, finger painting in preschool, holding up a handmade Father's Day card. The glass on one frame was cracked, but still standing. The plate he left in the sink that morning was still there. He didn't move. Years of effort played in his mind like a montage. Working double shifts at the post office and driving Uber at night to keep up with child support. Showing up at the courthouse only to have his voice drowned out by legal jargon and assumptions. It wasn't that he didn't fight, it's that the fight was fixed from the start. The phone rang. He picked it up without checking. Yeah, his mother's voice came through gently. I know that tone. What happened? Marcus exhaled slowly. Evan called me a loser tonight. Said it at dinner, just like it was fact. A pause. And you raised him better than that. I tried, Ma. But trying don't matter when they only see your silence, not the reason for it. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance, familiar and indifferent. His mother sighed. You're not invisible, Marcus. But sometimes the world acts like it wants you to be. He looked at the cracked frame. Yeah, I know. He ended the call and sat there, the quiet thick around him. The next day, he'd try again. He always did. Asterisk, asterisk, the next afternoon. Marcus walked through the double doors of Jefferson Middle School, scent of pencil shavings and cafeteria pizza still lingering in the air. He clutched a worn manila folder of Evan's progress reports. Notes from past meetings, questions he'd carefully written down the night before. He stepped into the front office. Can I help you? The receptionist asked, eyes flicking up, then down at his work boots. I'm here for Evan Callahan's parent-teacher conference, Coos replied, before she could respond. A white administrator emerged from the hallway and, without pause, said, Custodial entrance is around the side. We've got a spill in room 12. Marcus stared at him, his father. The man blinked. Oh, sorry, of course. Right this way. Marcus followed him down a beige hallway, each step loud against the linoleum. The overhead light flickered. Above room 208, where Leela and Adam were already seated, smiling, The teacher greeted them warmly. "It's always so great to see you, Mr. Callahan." Marcus took a seat beside them, the extra chair awkwardly positioned at the far end of the table as the teacher went through Evan's report. Marcus raised a point about Evan's slipping math grades. Before he could finish, she interrupted gently. "We've already discussed this with Mr. Callahan. It's being handled." He nodded once. Tight-lipped. Evan sat across the room, eyes on the floor. When he glanced up, Marcus caught his gaze for a heartbeat, then watched it slide away like it meant nothing. The meeting ended with handshakes and shallow smiles. Marcus walked out last. Outside, the sun had dipped behind the building, casting long shadows across the parking lot. He'd shown up, but somehow he still wasn't seen. Marcus hadn't been back to the shop in months, maybe a year. Life had gotten noisy, complicated. But today, he needed the silence that only came with the buzz of clippers and the rhythm of men talking like they weren't being watched. He pushed open the door to Terry's Cuts, and the familiar chime greeted him. Inside, the air smelled like antiseptic, talcum powder, and something deeply familiar like memory. Posters of Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and faded photos of black college graduates lined the walls. A cracked leather couch sagged in the corner. Terry was still behind his chair, lining up a teenager's fade like he was carving a sculpture. "Look who dragged himself back." Terry grinned, waving him in. "Long time, Marcus." Marcus smiled. Faintly, yeah, needed a clean-up, and maybe some perspective. Later, as he sat in the chair, cape snapped around his neck. The clippers began to hum in, so did the conversation. "You ever feel like you showed up for a test? No one told?" "You about?" Marcus asked. Terry chuckled. "Every damn day." Another man in the waiting chair nodded. "Man, my boy once told me, you dress like you poor?" I was working 2 jobs to keep him in Jordans. The room filled with knowing laughter, but the edge of pain stayed. "It's like they forget," Marcus said. "Or maybe they never knew." "They don't see the weight," Terry said. "Only the cracks it leaves." The clippers paused. Marcus looked at himself in the mirror, not just a man with graying edges, but one carrying more than his own story. He stood up, brushing hair from his neck. "Time to talk to my son?" "For real this time." The shop fell quiet for a beat. "Go be seen," Terry said. The rain tapped soft and steady against the kitchen window as the scent of garlic and tomato sauce filled the room. Marcus stirred the pot absently, his other hand gripping the counter harder than it needed to. The apartment was quiet, too quiet for the weight of what he was about to say. Evan sat at the small kitchen table, hunched over, his fingers tracing the wood grain. 13 and already learning how to hide discomfort behind blank expressions. His backpack lay forgotten by the door. Marcus set 2 plates down and sat across from him. "Thanks for coming," he said. Evan gave a slight nod, eyes on the steam rising from the pasta. There was no script for this, just the truth. "I didn't say anything that night," Marcus began. "Not because I agreed. You're because I didn't want to bleed in front of you." Evan looked up confused. Marcus took a slow breath. "You don't know how many times I showed up just to be turned away. Birthdays I had gifts for but wasn't allowed in. Custody hearings where the judge barely looked at me. I fought Evan, but no one listened." The words sat in the space. Between them like broken glass, sharp, undeniable. "Mom said you gave up," Evan mumbled. "I didn't," Marcus said quietly. "The system didn't fail me. It ignored me. I paid support. I called. I waited. I lost weekends I can't get back." Evan's fork clinked against the plate. He looked like he wanted to disappear. I know you didn't," Marcus replied, "but I need you to hear it now." The rain grew heavier outside, running down the window like tears no one had time to shed. Evan sat back, breathing shallow. I think I get it." Marcus nodded, a fragile hope swelling in his chest. "Then let's start from there." Asterisk. The gymnasium smelled like varnished wood in anticipation. Folding chairs lined the floor in tight rows, filled with families clutching programs and coffee in foam cups. A banner stretched across the back wall. Family voices, stories that shape us. Marcus sat near the back, hands folded in his lap a little apart from the others. He wasn't there to be seen. He was there to listen. Evan stood at the edge of the small stage, holding a printed page. His shirt was neatly tucked. His shoes to clean. Marcus recognized the anxious polishing of a kid trying to get it right. The microphone squeaked slightly as Evan stepped closer. The lights caught the edges of his curls and made his hands shake. He cleared his throat and began, "My name is Evan Callahan. My essay is called 'The Man I Didn't See Until I Looked Closer.'" The room fell still. For a long time Evan read, voice unsteady, but steadying. "I thought my dad wasn't there. He didn't drive me to soccer. He didn't show up at every event. I believed what was easier to believe, that he didn't try hard enough." Marcus's breath caught. "But the truth is, my dad was always trying, just not in ways I saw. Fought court dates I didn't know about, paid bills I never thanked him for, showed up to doors that were closed to him, and waited outside just in case I opened them." Evan paused. His voice cracked a little. "My dad never missed my life. I just didn't know what missing looked like from his side." Marcus blinked hard. His throat tightened. He never left. It was just drowned out by a story louder than his voice. Silence lingered as Evan stepped back from the mic. Then applause, gentle at first, then rising. Marcus clapped slowly. One. Hand pressing against his chest like he was holding something in place. He smiled, not wide, but full. In that moment, he wasn't invisible. He was a father. As the event ended and families rose, Marcus stayed seated, letting the moment settle in his bones. Outside, the sky was shifting, soft with dusk. It was almost time to talk again. Asterisk, asterisk, the sky outside the school was painted in streaks of pink and orange, the final breath of daylight stretching across the parking lot. The crowd had mostly dispersed, voices fading into distant goodbyes and car doors shutting. Marcus leaned against the hood of his old sedan, the warmth of the metal bleeding into his hands. Evan stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, his face still flushed from the reading. They hadn't spoken since the applause, since Evan's voice cracked in front of 100 strangers. Marcus broke the silence first. "You okay?" Evan nodded, slow. "Yeah, just a lot." They stood like that for a while, not looking at each other, but not needing to. Finally, Evan walked over and sat beside him on the hood, their shoulders barely touching. "I was wrong," Evan said quietly. "About you." Marcus didn't respond right away. He let the words settle like soft dust, honest and imperfect. "I didn't know how much I didn't know," Evan added. "I thought showing up meant being loud, being there all the time. But you were showing up, just in ways I never saw." Marcus glanced at him, eyes soft. "You don't have to get it all right. You just have to see me." "I do now," Evan said. And in that moment, the ache Marcus had carried for years tight in his chest, tucked behind every quiet gesture and every ignored effort, began to loosen, not disappear, but loosen. They sat in silence, watching the sky fade into a darker blue. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass and possibility. Evan turned slightly. "Can we try again? Like, ... start fresh?" Marcus smiled, small but sure. "We never stopped trying. We just had to find the right volume." The sound young again, unguarded. As the sun dipped fully below the horizon, Marcus stood and opened the passenger door. Evan slid in without hesitation. The door closed with a soft click. Marcus started the engine, the headlights washing the asphalt in gold. This time when they drove off, the silence wasn't heavy. It was full of hope, of words not said, but understood, of a father and son finding their way, one truth at a time,